The other day, in a group that I'm in, we were given a video prompt of what would your 10-year ago self be proud of about you today? And I think this is a really fun time to do this exercise because it is currently 2025. And when we look back, it's 2015. And fives always feel like good round numbers to me. It isn't just because these are good round numbers. This is actually a really profound time for me to look back at myself 10 years ago because 10 years ago feels like the beginning of a lot of things. 10 years ago was a big year for me. In October of 2015, just a month from when I'm filming this right now will be the 10-year anniversary of that. October of 2015, we had a flood. Our family had a flood in our house, a house that I really, really liked. We were renting the house. It wasn't a house that we owned, but I loved that house. And I thought maybe I would like to buy that house from the owner someday. And there was a 1,000-year flood in our area. So it wasn't just us that were flooded. It was our entire side of the street that was flooded and lots of different neighborhoods all throughout the area. So we had water come in from our backyard up in and fill up our bottom floor. Not as high as some people do. It wasn't as dramatic as a lot of people's situations are, but it was dramatic for us, right? It was dramatic in that moment. If you've ever had water come into your house uninvited, it is kind of a dramatic thing. And so it got a little bit higher than the baseboards in throughout our entire first floor. And our garage was a couple steps down. So our garage got it even higher. And we went through a lot of change over that next year. The whole thing was dramatic. There ended up being mold in the house after that, and we ended up having to move. By the time they figured out that there was mold and we had to move, they're like, we need you out in 6 days. So the whole thing was incredibly stressful. And it seemed like at the time, one thing piled up after another because then our dog died. And then my partner had an accident with an axe where a piece of the axe got lodged into his leg. And there were other things, but I can't even remember what they were now because it just was like everything was happening on top of each other. And sometimes that's what happens in life, right? Sometimes it's one thing after another, and you're trying to not just deal with the original thing, but you're also trying to continue living and dealing with the new things that are coming in afterward. And sometimes it's a lot and it's really heavy. And what we decided to do was ultimately, there were lots of conversations and lots of options and choices, but ultimately we decided we were going to sell all of our stuff and move into an RV and travel full time. Traveling full time was a dream that I had had. It was something that I really wanted to do, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. What are we going to do with all our stuff? Where are we going to put it? While we travel, we have to have a house and be able to afford to travel at the same time. And something about that flood broke something open inside of me that made me feel less attached to my things instead of more. I think it could have gone either way. I felt like we didn't actually lose all that much. The whole situation during the flooding, we had a second floor in our house. We ran everything up to the second floor, from the most important things to the least important things, and we didn't lose a lot. But I felt less attached to everything that I did own because of being so close to having lost a lot of things. Because in the moment that a flood is happening, and you're there trudging through the waters, you don't know when it's going to stop. We moved everything to the second floor in hopes that that would be enough. We didn't know if it would. We didn't know if the water would rise up to fill our entire first floor. We didn't know if we would end up having to be rescued from our rooftop off the second floor. Like, we didn't know where it was going to stop. And so in the moment, we did the best that we could. But that allowed me to feel less attached to my stuff. I would have never in a million years said, even just a couple of months before that, that I would be willing to let go of my stuff. And yet we did. We set a goal for selling 75% of our things, but we sold 90% of our things. There's a whole video where I talk about it from long ago on this channel. Yeah, we ended up selling 90% of our things. And then we had a whole series of really incredible events happen that led us to get an RV. And we set out a year after that date to travel full time, which was the dream that I was like desperately wanting and that I just couldn't see how to get. And I feel like sometimes when these terrible things happen in life, the things that are the most challenging, the things that seem the worst, I think that a lot of times they are shifting you onto the road you're meant to be on. Because usually when it's a big thing like that, things change. Like a lot of things change all at once. And so that shifted us into exactly what I said I wanted. Suddenly we were traveling full time, just like I wanted. And what was interesting, though, is that as we got into that, I found that traveling full time, just like I had wanted, not working in the job that I really disliked working in, that I had worked in for over 10 years before that, I felt like something was still not right. And that led me down the journey that I'm still on today, doing the energy clearing work that I do today because I needed it. I had all this stress and I couldn't figure out why. I shouldn't be stressed out right now. I have all the things that I said I wanted, and I still feel this like heightened anxiety. I still feel really stressed. Like, what's going on? And I started learning about how emotions affect our body, about how they get stuck in our body, about how trauma affects the body. And I started learning to let that stuff go and to work with energy and work with the body to release that stuff. Prior to all of this, going back to my early 20s, I was kind of fascinated by the energy work and stuff. I followed different people, read lots of books, but something about it didn't feel, it was because I was in this space of, I didn't feel like, oh, that's so cool that other people can do that, but I can't do that. Like, I'm not that special. I'm not good enough to do something like that. I just am the kind of person that just has a regular 9 to 5 job where they get a paycheck and they dislike it. And that's just, that's who I lucked out to be. Well, this whole flood from 10 years ago shifted us into a new space where we were then traveling full time. And then I was learning about energy clearing because I needed it again. And as I started working with it, I started realizing what was possible and getting better at it and practicing on other people and figuring out that I can do this. I do have this possibility. And it's been a whole journey since then. Now, there was still one thing. Um, I love traveling, but I had always thought that maybe when I had kids, I would come and live near my family and raise my kids here. Where we live is a really nice place to live. And I was sad that we were not close to my family. And then we had another big thing that seemed like the worst thing that could possibly happen when my partner got sick. But then he was the one that was like, let's go live near your family. And so, as we shifted out of our full time RVing life, we shifted into life here where I get to see my family regularly. And my mother lives 10 minutes down the street from me. And my sisters are both here. My dad is here. Like my whole family lives around here. So now my kids are getting to be raised around some family members and now I appreciate it here more. I always knew that I would leave when I was younger and needed to leave, but now I'm happy to be back. And so if me from 10 years ago, if I would have known exactly where I am right now, that I would be living back here, I would have said, no, that's not possible. If I would have known that I was working online, doing my own business, I have a couple of online businesses that I do, and that supports our family. I would have been really excited about that. That was what I wanted, right? Was to do some kind of work that feeds my soul, that doesn't like the work that I was doing. I felt like it was like killing my soul a little bit going in and doing the kind of work that I was doing before because it just wasn't me, right? It's right for other people, but it just wasn't right for me. And I would be really pleased with what has happened over the last 10 years. Now, if I was to go back 10 years from right now, that was before I knew about the challenges that we were going to go through. And there were a lot of big challenges over the last 10 years, but I don't regret them. And I wouldn't take them back as much as I wouldn't want them to happen again. I wouldn't want to go through it all again. I wouldn't take them back because they got us here. They made us who we are today. They brought us on this journey, and this journey has been worth it. So I think that 10 years ago, me would be really pleased with where I am today. And I'm curious if you look back over your last 10 years, have they been full of as much change as mine has? Have you made big strides? Have you dreamed big? Like what happened to you over the last 10 years? You know, we had this entire global pandemic happen just 5 years ago that nobody could have ever imagined or predicted. Even the people who say, oh, yes, there should be a pandemic coming at some point in time, like we couldn't have predicted the way that it went down and what happened and how everything played out. And that changed things for a lot of people. You know, we have these moments in life sometimes where it's like before this and after this, these very direct moments. For me, the flood was one. It was before the flood and after the flood. There is a very distinct before the flood and after the flood. The pandemic, before the pandemic and after the pandemic. That's a huge one. There was also before my partner got sick and after my partner got sick. He's doing much better. He's on a healing journey always, but as we all are, right? We're always all on a healing journey, but like he's doing really good now. But there was before that and after that. Like there are moments in life when things change really dramatically. Even we can go back to like before you have kids and after you have kids. Like life is very different in those two different circumstances. And so for me, the last 10 years has been filled with those before and after moments, but one of them was very directly, almost exactly 10 years ago. So I'm curious about any before and after moments that you've had. What has happened over your last 10 years? Are you pleased with the way the last 10 years have gone? Or would you like to change the trajectory of your next 10 years, right? We always have the option. We always have the choice. Even when we don't think we have choices, we have choices. So what are you going to make of the next 10 years? I know I'm doing a lot of dreaming about mine right now. And as quickly as the world changes and as much as I've seen in the past, I kind of feel like it's really hard to imagine what the next 10 years might bring. But also I'm going to continue to imagine it as best I can. Have a wonderful day. This was day 10 of my 30-day YouTube challenge of showing up every day on YouTube. If you are here, let me know. I would love to know you. And I'm a third of the way through. This is a third of the way in. So I'm feel like that's quite an accomplishment. I'm pretty proud of that. And we'll see how the next 20 days go. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.